All right. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day today to learn a little bit more about our NRPA awards, scholarships, and fellowships. So without any further ado, my name is Michael Wiedenstein. I am the Volunteer and Awards Manager here at NRPA. After 18 years of working in the field of Parks and Recreation, many of which being a highly engaged member of NRPA, I am now on the staff side and have been for a little over a year now. This is my second time through our awards cycle here at NRPA, and I have the pleasure of working closely with our National Awards and Scholarships Committee, the chair of which is Donnie. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Donnie.
Yeah, my name is Donnie Hayes. I hail from the wonderful land of the Northern Lights up here in Alaska. I am the this year's awards committee chair. I'm happy to work with Michael and Jeanette and the many other committee members. It's a real blessing to be able to read and learn about the many different things that are happening across the nation and the amazing people that we have working in Parks and Recreation. So thanks, Michael, for letting me be a part of this.
And I'm Jeanette Aiello, the Project and Operations Supervisor for Canton Township. I'm the chair-elect for the awards committee, and I also serve as the CPRE Development Exam Committee Chair for NRPA and assist with CAPRA. So welcome everybody, and thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Donnie. I also want to say thank you to the other 11 members of the Awards and Scholarships Committee, several of which are probably even on the Zoom today. Want to acknowledge the amount of time and the amount of expertise and really hard discussions and decisions. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But while being on this committee is fun, it's serious and it takes a lot of work. And I want to make sure we acknowledge the full committee's role to all current and past members of the committee. So thank you. Our roadmap for today is first and foremost to just find out some basics about the awards. So I'm guessing you're probably here on this presentation today to find out probably about one or two of the categories, but we're going to run through them all. So hopefully you have a better idea of the one you're interested in. Maybe you'll even be inspired perhaps to think of someone or a project or a program that could be a great fit for one of the other awards. It is important to notate here early on, if you are here to learn about 30 Under 30 or to learn about the National Gold Medal Program, that is not the main focus of today. So if you're interested in that information, we'll have some links in the presentation. Also, the presentation will be available at the same place you registered at learning.nrpa.org. But once again, if you're here to find out a bunch of info about 30 Under 30, which is an awesome program that dropped yesterday, the announcement was yesterday, or the gold medal, this is probably not the perfect presentation for you to sit in. So that said, we're going to go through some submission tips, filling out a presentation, or I'm sorry, filling out a nomination or submission. We'll also hit on some scoring insight. And then to kind of wrap it all up, we'll even touch on the 2023 timeline in particular. So I will kick us off with the information about the awards. The Innovation Awards are a 4-award category, or 5-award category, I guess you would say, which celebrates some of the most outstanding, innovative, and creative work that is done within Parks and Recreation agencies. If you go to awards.nrpa, I'm sorry, nrpa.org/awards, I'll actually drop that in the chat. That's where all of this info is at. You will see 4 awards to apply for. Drop that in the chat. You will see 4 awards to apply for, and you say, well, Michael, there's 5 on the screen here. We have Innovation in Conservation Award, Innovation in Equity Award, Innovation in Health Award, and Innovation in Park Design Award. There are winners in each of those 4 categories. And then those are announced as we'll talk about announcing, and then it's a surprise announcement that one of those 4 award winners is named the Best in Innovation for that year. So you don't specifically apply for Best in Innovation, you apply for one of the categories. And that is an important distinction. You need to make a determination which if you're thinking about a particular program or a particular facility, what award category do you feel is strongest? Because you are only able to nominate in one of these categories. Perhaps it's obvious: conservation, equity, health, and park design. But in case it's not, the things that are often questions about this award category is about the eligibility criteria. And while you should look at pretty detailed at every one of these awards that you're considering, the common one that people are asking about clarification on in the innovation category is we recognize that innovation, by the nature of it, is recent and is relatively new. All of these awards for innovation need to have been implemented, launched, opened since January 1st of last year. So you essentially have a full year. If you're submitting this in March, closer to the deadline, maybe a full year and a couple months. That's pretty straightforward on a brand new park, right? You cut the ribbon on a park, but we recognize that sometimes that's a little bit harder to nail down. This is a new iteration or it was a relaunch. So there's actually a clarifying question there as well now on what is new in that eligibility time period. But that's the gist of it, is we want things that were launched, implemented since January 1st of the previous year, which in this instance is going to be January 1st of 2022. Anything that I missed, Jeanette, Donnie, about innovation awards? Okay. Next category is Spotlight Awards. So innovation awards. I will grab that question from the chat here actually before we move on. So great question from the chat. In case you're watching the recording, how do you define launched for the innovation award? If it's an initiative as a plan, not all park construction. So that's where we have a clarifying question. Where if it's if it is multiple steps in, what is new? That's kind of your chance to make that clarification, right? I will never, as the National Volunteer and Awards Manager, I facilitate the process. I won't speak for the committee. The committee ultimately, they have their determinations on their own and their scoring on their own. Mainly, it's about an outreach method. So that's a great question. So if you're doing planning for a program or something like that, it's really when the program is implemented. We recognize that there might be lots of design work on a park design beforehand, public information gathering, needs assessment. That info would certainly be counted as before implementation, before launch. Does that help clarify? Yes, okay. Yep, perfect. Really great question though. And the good news is, while these awards criteria are considered for adjustment each year, they are generally similar. So if you don't have something that will have launched by the time the award deadline is this year, it will almost surely be eligible next year. Go ahead, Donnie.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, I think that there are a lot of people in the community, when they're looking at some of these awards, that they may have similar questions as this.
Yep.
And you know, the committee and also Michael are really responsive to those types of questions. So if you're working through an application and you go, you know what, does this actually fit? Or you may have a question of how that timeline might match up, feel free to shoot us an email. Yep. We would be more than happy to answer any question, or at least help to direct those to the appropriate sources.
Yeah, I'll drop that email address in here as well. That's a really great point, Donnie. And there are times when I will forward a question to the executive committee of the awards committee. Once again, we're not saying would this be competitive or not, because ultimately that's something that the full committee would determine. But if you have a question about eligibility, we can try to help clarify an eligibility question. Yes, I would agree with that. With your answer there, that you would submit initiative when it launched. Yeah, and like I said, shoot us an email. Each case is a little bit different if we want to go a little bit deeper. So innovation awards are for Parks and Recreation agencies. Spotlight awards are for individuals. So we kind of have awards for agencies, and these awards are for individuals. They're not all Parks and Recreation professionals necessarily. We'll run through them pretty quickly here. The National Distinguished Professional Award is the top of the top. This is somebody who has been in the field for a long time, who's had a tangible impact on the field of Parks and Recreation. This past year, the most recent award winners of this award are people like Dirk Richwine, who now has an award named after him. Dr. Michael Ann Lord. Those are the sorts of people that have recently won this National Distinguished Professional Award. I guess kind of the other end of this, the experience spectrum perhaps might be the Robert W. Crawford Young Professional Award. This is going to be for a Parks and Recreation professional who is 35 years old or younger. So this is a really awesome opportunity to highlight an up-and-coming park and recreation. I say up-and-coming, many of these are already extremely established, but that's that Young Professional Award. New this year, we have a Dirk Richwine Professional Mentoring Award. If you're unfamiliar, this is named after the late, great Dirk Richwine, who really embodied and perhaps modeled, might be the best way. There are lots of awesome mentors in the field of Parks and Recreation. And as the committee talked about our award platform, it really just became clear that awards are opportunities for NRPA and for our profession to lift up, model excellent behavior, and celebrate excellent professionals, celebrate excellent innovations, celebrate excellent behaviors that we'd like to see throughout the industry, and professional mentoring is really one of them. It is so integral to our field of public parks and recreation that was the impetus behind us starting this new professional mentoring award this year. While most of these other awards have 10, 20, if not longer years of tweaking of the questions, we might not have nailed it perfectly this first year for the professional mentoring award. But the profile of candidate who would be particularly competitive for this award is likely to be somebody who might not be the person who is the figurehead on a lot of things, but their influence and their guidance is really filtered out within their agency, probably even within their state and on a wider level as well. Sometimes that's one-on-one mentoring, sometimes that's supporting mentoring programs. You might refer to that as kind of indirect mentoring, where maybe you're not doing the mentoring, but you're creating these environments for mentoring to really flourish. So we're really excited to be launching that new award this year. And excited to see that going forward. All right. And then the fourth and final Spotlight Award that we will be presenting in 2023 is the Robert Arts Advocate Award. And the Advocate Award generally doesn't go to a Parks and Recreation professional. It might, or it might go to a retired professional, but it's generally going to go to a board or commission member, an outstanding volunteer. Normally it's a citizen advocate who has really gone to bat for Parks and Recreation, has, as it says in the name, been an awesome advocate for Parks and Recreation, whether it's in the local community or within a state or even at the national level. So those are our 4 Spotlight Awards this year. We do have a 5th Spotlight Award, which is the Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt Award for Excellence in Recreation and Park Research. That's a really awesome award, obviously for scholarly research, but that is awarded on a 3-year cycle. So that will be next awarded in 2024, not in 2023. Any questions about Spotlight Awards? Each one of them has slightly different eligibility, where the eligibility for innovation awards are pretty standard across the board. These are a little bit different by each type of award. Wonderful. The third category of award is fellowships and scholarships. And so we have up to 8 winners collectively in this category each year. We have up to 4 young professional fellowships. That's once again 35 or younger, similar to the Crawford Award. These fellowships, we award up to 4 of them a year. We award up to 2 diversity scholarships a year and up to 2 student scholarships a year as well. While these awards, these scholarships and fellowships are recognized at the best of the best ceremony at conference, they're celebrated like all the other awards. They also have the additional benefit for the winners of free registration to conference and up to $1,000 of travel stipend to get you to and from conference, get you a hotel at conference, that sort of thing. Conference, we're very excited this year, will be October 10th through 12th in Dallas, Texas. In particular, if you are looking for an opportunity on maybe a way to get to conference when you otherwise couldn't, scholarships and fellowships are a great way to get you there. Now that said, it's a highly competitive, especially I believe without looking at the exact numbers, the Young Professional Fellowship is always the highest quantity of nominations that come in. We have fewer for diversity and student scholarships. We still always have high quality in each one of those, but these are highly competitive awards that people are pursuing. So we'll talk a little bit more about crafting a good award nomination coming up. But yeah, what do you have to throw in here, Donnie?
Yeah, the other thing that is a benefit to these fellowships and scholarships is that we usually always connect them with a mentor.
Yes,
And
thank you.
so those mentors usually come from our committee, folks that have been in the industry for a long time and are just top notch. And so it's really a great opportunity not only to be able to attend NRPA, to be recognized for the effort and the work that you're doing, but also to be able to have a mentor that you can count on and that you can work with and talk to, not just during the conference and before the conference, but for years to come as well. It's a pretty awesome opportunity.
Yes, thank you. That's a really great point. Yeah, helping you navigate if this is your first conference, but then also could be an awesome resource for you going forward. Really great point. Thank you. All right. The fourth category that we will talk about today is the Robert W. Crawford Recreation and Park Hall of Fame. The Recreation and Park Hall of Fame is one of our NRPA awards, but it does have a slightly different governance, I guess you would say. The Hall of Fame is housed at NRPA's headquarters in Ashburn, Virginia, and it is actually governed by a separate joint committee between the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration and NRPA. So as it sounds like, the Hall of Fame, while you have an all-star team every year and you have awards every year, the Hall of Fame is that lifetime achievement, profound impact on the field of Parks and Recreation. Oftentimes we're looking for outside of your, even maybe things that are outside of your normal, definitely looking for things that are outside of your normal job description, things that have really impacted the field of Parks and Recreation from a historical perspective. This award is also the only one that is awarded, has to be awarded posthumously. The inductee actually has to have deceased at least 5 years ago, which really crystallizes their impact, crystallizes their place in history from a historical perspective. So if you're interested in the Hall of Fame, it's on the same awards page as everything else. It's just scored by a slightly different group than Donnie and Jeanette's committee. So the things that we aren't going to touch on today, I did want to put a link in here. 30 Under 30. Regardless of what you're interested in, I would encourage you to check out 30 Under 30. It always has a special place in my heart. The 2023 30 Under 30 class was just announced yesterday. It's the cover story of the February Parks and Recreation magazine. If you're interested in submitting someone for that, those nominations are typically accepted late summer, early fall, so that it lines up with the magazine release in February. And then similarly, a slightly different group is the National Gold Medal Award. NRPA is a strong partner and supporter of the National Gold Medal Award Program. It is governed by the American Academy for Park and Recreation Administration. So if you're interested in that, it is the highest award to be bestowed upon parks and recreation agencies. And if you're interested in that, the link is right here. They have some infomercial, or they have some information sessions on that website as well. As we look at timelines a little bit further along, the Gold Medal Award has a similar nomination period, but it's just slightly earlier. So if you're thinking about that, make sure you check out aapra.org sooner than later, because that's coming up a little bit faster. So I wanted to pivot now to some submission tips. I'm going to tag in some members of our committee here in just a second, but one more kind of dry nuts and bolts piece for me would be really just how to log in. Hopefully you'll be going to nrpa.org/awards, and under each different category, there's always a apply here. When you go to apply here is when you'll see a lot of the detail about eligibility, about what you're going to be asked to submit, those sort of things. When you go to start an application though, you are going to need to log in. The good news is this is the same login that you use for nearly every other thing at NRPA. If you submitted an education session to be presented this year in Dallas, it's that same login. If you are certified as a Parks and Recreation professional or Parks and Recreation executive, and you've gone in and entered your CEUs, it's the same login. If you go to NRPA Connect, once again, same login. If you haven't accessed it in a while, or you don't remember what your login is, when you go to the page, it's what you see on the screen here. I encourage you to utilize that forgot username. If you don't have a username tied to that email address, you can create a new account. Depending on the award, you may or may not need to be an actual NRPA member. If you remember your username, or you've used the forgot username and find it, obviously right next to that is forgot password. While awards at nrpa.org is your resource for awards clarification questions, eligibility, you can also email that. I monitor that email address. You can email if you have issues getting access, but the more direct place to get your login figured out is going to be customer service at nrpa.org, which is at the bottom here, and it's on the last slide of helpful reminders as well. So once again, hopefully you remember your login. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Nope. So thanks, Michael, for going over those steps. And so we get to the submission tips, and we went through the different categories. It's really important that you read through all the eligibility criteria for each one to figure out the best place. So when we were talking about the innovation awards, figuring out you might have something that fits in 1, 2, or more different spots. So look at the criteria, find the best location for it. So if you email Michael and say, where should I put this? He's not going to tell you which one to put it in. It's really up to you to figure out which one. Is it the health? Is it the equity award? Is it conservation? Where does it fit in? And then if it asks for certain things, making sure that you upload each one of those things. So when you get into the fellowships and scholarships, and if it asks for a resume, you have to put a resume in there. If it asks for a cover letter, put that in there. Even if those things are listed as optional, please put them in there. The more detail we have, the better. Anywhere there's an option for attachments, put applicable things when possible. And getting into differentiating your submission. So especially in the world of innovation, what I do in Michigan might not be innovative. But if Donnie does the same program in Alaska, it might be truly innovative to do it in Alaska, and vice versa. And or it might be truly innovative in my community to implement something that's never been done before, or you've done an approach that's never been considered before, that's had a really impactful result from it. So it's important when you're crafting your application that you tell that story in a concise manner, but tell us the story of why it's innovative to you. Why is it innovative to your area or to your community? Because if you just, put a great program together and you don't put that little oomph of why it's important, why it's innovative, why it's impactful, we're not going to truly understand what the result was from you having that program. Same goes with you for the fellowships and scholarships. Really explaining why is it important that you get to NRPA? What's the value of it? We really want to get people to the conference that wouldn't normally have that opportunity or have never had that opportunity or wouldn't be able to do it very successfully without our support, or they'd really benefit from having a mentor if they were there. So telling us the reasoning and of why that's important and what the value is. And then when you're writing your narratives, as you go through it, you might read some questions and you're like, well, I already told them that in 2 other questions ahead. Read the question, answer the question as it's written. You may have to say the same thing in a different manner or a different component of it in more than one section, or tell us some different things that also help support your cause. But read the questions, provide thoughtful responses based on exactly what it's asking. If you're not sure, you can always email the awards email link, and Michael and his team will be more than happy to help answer as much as they're allowed to. But it's really important to read it and then go back through it. And then, I really encourage you to have someone else read your application, not just you, but if you're applying for a fellowship or scholarship, have, a professor or a supervisor or colleague read through it and see from their perspective whether or not that could benefit. And then, make sure you kind of spread the word that you applied for it, really promote it that you've done it, and get the word out there and have other people look at it too. You might have somebody from a local agency, if you're applying for an innovation award, having a neighboring community representative read it too. So being thoughtful in what you're responding to and then writing a well-crafted application will go a long way in helping the committee choose the best individuals or agencies to recognize at the awards. So I'm going to turn it over to Donnie, and he's going to go through the next steps as far as things to keep in mind with your application.
Thanks, Jeanette. I appreciate that. And just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, that whole proofreading, accuracy, grammar, spelling, when we're doing these applications, whether they're innovations or the scholarships or whatever one it is, the goal is always to stand out. Yeah. And that could be in a good way, or that could be in a oops way. And so it really is important, if you're transferring that information from a Word document over to the application, do a double check. Just make sure that everything is all there, that the information that you want is there, because we read a lot of submissions. And so we are looking for that one thing that stands out. So, yep. So make sure it's a good thing and not an oops thing.
Yeah. Now, to touch on that really briefly, and we say good writing matters, that like we don't just want to award the best written nomination. Like that's not the goal. You want to award the best nominee, right? That said, all that we have to go off of is what's in front of us. And that's also only what's fair. Like we can't do a bunch of our own research, because if we do our own research, we've had to do that for everybody. And that's just not feasible. So make sure that what differentiate and make sure that gets in there, and the proofreading just is to make sure that it doesn't, to Donnie's point, doesn't stand out in the wrong way, right? So yeah, while we wish it would automatically, regardless of writing, the best would come to the top, good writing does matter.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about these scoring insights, the first thing that you're gonna look at is that each one of the applications have very specific questions that are trying to draw out from the applicant the most important parts of your program, your innovation project, your scholarship application. We're trying to draw that information out from you. And so we have very specific questions that are built for each one of those. And sometimes you may look at that question and think, oh, well, that's pretty straightforward. Read it again. Make sure that you truly understand that question and that you are really answering that specifically. So there's usually 4 or 5 questions that are narrative questions, but there are also other questions like, are you currently a CPRP? Are you currently a member of NRPA? And those are things that we're looking at as well. So make sure that each one of the questions throughout this process are filled out completely, because it really is helpful for those of us that are scoring this. And so the question is, who is scoring this, right? So we've got a huge committee, not huge, but a committee of about 15 of us that review all of these different applications. We break up into two groups. There's half of the committee will look at all the innovation applications, and then there will be half that'll look at the spotlight and fellowship and scholarships. And so we have a nice little program. We read each of the applications. We give them a score. We take copious notes on each one of these applications. And then as an organization, as a committee, we come back together and we begin talking about these applications. And there's a lot of healthy discussion about each one of them. One of the things to really look at and remember is that when you're filling out these applications, we are making notes about that. And those notes come into play because, we've just finished 40 different scholarship applications. And sometimes it's like, okay, which person did I actually vote for? And who did I, put on the very top? And why did I do that? Because it may be a week or two or a couple of weeks after we did that scoring. And so those notes we take to really help us to remember who we're talking about. And we have a long discussion to be able to come out with what we're looking at as our top applicants for all of these awards. Some of the things when we're talking about the scoring, our committee is made up of people all across the US. Now, some people may think that Alaska is not part of the US, but it actually is, I promise. And so I'm a perfect example of the variety that is on this committee. We're all looking at things in different ways from our perspectives, our states, our experience. And it makes for a really great opportunity to evaluate each one of these things in a pretty spectacular way. Another thing to think about when we're looking at scoring is letters of recommendation, your like Jeanette said, your actual bio and your all that background information helps us to know who you are as well. So if there is a question that asks for that information, it really is important to put that in there. When we are looking at these things and scoring is really close, of course, these letters of recommendation are important. Proofreading accuracy is important. But really what it comes down to is that, like Michael says at the bottom, our judges are human, right? And so I'm sure at some point Michael is saying judges are human from a standpoint of, yeah, we don't always get everything perfect, but at the same time, we are human. And the number one thing that we want as humans is connection. And so there may not be a physical connection that is made, but when you are writing these applications, make me cry, make me feel something. If you personally are a playful person, are energetic, or your program is an energetic, really exciting program, help me to feel that. Help me to be connected to that. That's what we want. Bullet points of awards that you've made are great, but I want to connect. I want to be able to walk up to you after I've just chosen you as the diversity scholarship, and I want to know who you are. And I want to be like, oh my gosh, I read that. Like that was amazing. I want to give that person a huge hug because I connected to them through this application even before I've actually met them. So make me want to meet you. Make me want to be a part of your program. Make me want to be involved. So please help us connect. That really is a critical part to this overall process. It's a great opportunity. I hope people really take advantage of it. And the last thing I would say is that stealing is the highest form of flattery. And so don't be afraid to take your applications and go out and ask the people that have won in the past and say, what made your application stand out? That really is an easy way for you to get a better understanding of the types of things that we're looking for when we're scoring. So thanks again, everyone, for being here. I appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Donnie. Yeah, I mean, we're human, and it is also pretty simple, right? Like the blanks you see on there is generally what the committee is going to be scoring on. There's not some sort of voodoo on the backside. Like if we've asked 4 narrative questions, you're probably going to get a score for the first narrative question, and the second narrative question, and the third and the fourth. So, yep, fully complete and differentiate. Thank you. The process for 2023. We are currently in the middle of the submission period. So that could be a nomination for some awards or an application, depending on which award you're considering submitting for. The key, though, is that all of those submissions are due, need to be finalized by Friday, March 24th. If you haven't gone in and started poking around the application, I would highly encourage you to do so. You can go in, even if a question is required, you can bypass it to see the next page, just to kind of get an idea of what you're going to be submitting. Make sure you've got all the stuff that you're going to need to submit. The nice thing too, because you log in, throughout this entire period, you can have an in-progress application, do a couple things on it, come back to it. If you only have time to write out one of the narrative questions, write that out and then come back to it, review it later, work on the second one, come back a third time to review the second one and work on the third one, right? These can be in progress, just make sure they're finalized by Friday, March 24th. The committee will then do their review and scoring of the nominations through the months of April and May. We then meet as a committee in May to make any final adjustments, decisions. And then I will work feverishly after that with the committee's decisions to do lots of behind the scenes. We're going to get out a press release. We're going to get an announcement. We're going to get our scholarships and fellowship award winners paired with their mentors. We're going to get verbiage finalized for the awards and for the presentation at Best of the Best. But the key things when you're submitting is really obviously the end of March 24th. Is that date to make sure you've got your application in, and you probably won't hear anything unless I'm emailing maybe about a clarification of eligibility, perhaps. You probably won't hear anything until June. Right around the exact same time that the award winners find out. We try to email almost simultaneously all of the outstanding nominations who weren't selected this year. So you should find out one way or the other in June, and that's on purpose so that if this affects how you might attend conference or something like that, you have plenty of time before that early August early bird registration deadline to make plans or adjust your plans. We hope obviously that everyone has the ability and makes it to the NRPA annual conference in Dallas in October. That is where the Best in Innovation Award winners are revealed at the Best of the Best ceremony. All of these award winners are recognized at the Best of the Best ceremony alongside our CAPRA accredited and newly accredited and reaccredited agencies, along with our recently certified professionals. It's a wonderful celebration. That is our in person. We're glad to be back in person. Our awards celebration for all of our awards, and it's also live streamed online. So that's the process for 2023. If you are watching this in the future, it will likely be a very similar process, but make sure to reference nrpa.org/awards for that particular year's dates if you're watching this in the future. What questions do we have? I've dropped in some of these links. nrpa.org/awards is where you're going to find all the information and submission forms. Awards@nrpa.org is the collective email address that I help monitor. If you have questions about eligibility in particular, or clarifications on what we're looking for on a particular data field. Customer service at nrpa.org is particularly helpful if you're struggling to just remember your username, what's your password, that sort of stuff. what else do we have, Jeanette or Donnie?
So I just wanted to touch on the fact that we've mentioned a couple different times that we review a lot of applications. And by a lot of applications, it varies from year to year, but we by no means get a application from every single state in our country. Like
Yeah.
we don't get nearly the amount of applications that probably could represent the really cool things and the really cool individuals that are out there. So if you're listening to this and you're like, they just said they get a lot of applications and there's probably people doing way better things than me, please don't use that to hold you back. We want to hear about what's going on. We, like Donnie said, we want to meet you. We want to know what's happening. I mean, one of the best parts about this committee, I mean, there's a couple really cool things, but is that when I'm going through applications, I'm like, oh, that's really neat. And then all of a sudden I'm jumping on that agency's website
Yep.
and like, oh, I want to learn all about that. Or, you know, I learn about a really cool individual and all of a sudden I'm looking up what they're doing and things like that. And we do divide up the applications between the committee, between the innovation awards and the individual awards. And a lot of times if I didn't get to read the ones on the other side, you know, when the top ones come through, I'm like eager to find out what's going on with them. So when you're hearing this, if you think that, oh, they get so many, there's no way I could stand out, you totally can. Trust me, you can. And we would love to see representation across our entire association, all the different regions, find out what's happening everywhere. So please spread the word throughout your state associations or your regional associations that these opportunities are out there. And if you were got an award from your state association for something you've done in the past year, or you've gotten an award in your region or your community, you know, that's probably your trigger that those things might be something worth considering applying as well for some of these awards through the NRPA. So whatever you do, don't let, you know, the fact that it's a national award kind of scare you away from applying for things. We want to learn about you. We want to see what's going on in your community. So please apply.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna jump on that again because Jeanette, you said something earlier in the presentation about, you know, some of the innovation awards and how you may not think that your specific program is all that innovative because, you know, somebody else in your state is doing something similar. That may be true, but what we really want to know, is it innovative for your community? How does it affect your community? How has it made your community better? Like, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about innovation. Like, we really want to see like a human connection, right? How did you connect with your community, making your community better? And how did that just leapfrog, you know, what's happening for the people that you are serving? And that's really a critical part to all of this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Donnie. A quick question that Mara had in the chat: if a program was relaunched, would the second newer iteration qualify for innovation awards? Yes. That's why we have the clarification there of making sure though that it's not just the new session of it, but that it is new, that it was actually relaunched as new. We're not looking for, well, it's this year's season per se, but hopefully that helps clarify. That is why we added the clarification question, because sometimes it's hard to understand, hard to dig through for the committee in particular, that it was new that particular year. The one thing I wanted to echo, and what I've shared in particular with young professionals, pivoting back to, should I even nominate, right? So oftentimes in the public sector, I worked in the field for 18 years. It was almost feeling guilty to promote yourself, to brag, because I'm just here to serve, right? I'm just here to serve my community, stay humble, right? Okay. Also, though, when you are going as a professional to apply for the next job, or first of all, you are doing awesome things and you should be proud of them. But also, I really appreciated early in my career, as I was writing awards, as I was writing narratives, as I was trying to stand out, as I was trying to differentiate myself, it really did help me think about what it is that sets me apart. And that's what I then used in future job applications. That's what I used in future job interviews. It forced me to think about myself and brag on myself a little bit. And likewise, whether it's going through CAPRA accreditation, whether it's pursuing the gold medal, whether it's submitting a innovation award, those agency-wide awards are a really awesome way to build some camaraderie within your team and to take a step back and realize that what we're doing is important. What we're doing does have an impact, because sometimes it can be hard to see in the day-to-day. Yeah, it went well, but we don't even have time to think about the impact because we're on to the next thing. I would highly encourage you to make sure you're involving, if you're doing an innovation award, involve your team, and think about those questions, because they are about how do we gather public input? What are the successes? Because that's an often overlooked aspect of, once again, whether it's an award nomination, whether it's a gold medal nomination, or even things like CAPRA accreditation, is that it's a great collaboration and galvanizing exercise as well for your agency.
So, and Michael, you've answered this question in the chat, but Laura did ask, will others in my agency be able to view this webinar on demand? And if they log into their own learning portal, and just because we are recording this, you know, and maybe not everybody sees it in the chat, but yes, this will be posted on the awards page at nrpa.org. So please, if once it's up there, share it with your friends. Make sure that folks are seeing that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a couple different places. We'll definitely have it in the learning management software where you want to register, even though it'll be passed, people will be able to register for there. We'll have it on the awards page. We'll probably even have it on our YouTube channel. So yep, this should be out there. And by all means, the intent of this is for it to be reused on a recording basis as well. That's all the content we had today. We'll be here for a little bit longer, at least a minute or so, but you have the contact information here if you have a much more specific question that we can help address. So thank you so much, everybody.